You're listening to the Joyful Practice for Women Lawyers podcast, episode number 66. Welcome to the Joyful Practice for Women Lawyers podcast. I'm your host, Paula Price, lawyer turned certified executive coach. This podcast was created to empower women lawyers just like you to create a life and practice you love. Join me every week for a break from the hustle so we can focus on you, what you truly want, and how you can create it. If you're over the overwhelm, done with putting out fires, and ready to redefine success on your own terms, you're in the right place. Ready for today's episode? Let's dive in. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the podcast. It's Paula here, and I'm so excited to have you back. Welcome. For anybody who is joining for the first time this week, welcome to the podcast. I'm delighted to have you. This is a wonderful episode for you to start out with. We are going to talk all about marketing, which is a topic that has been coming up a lot recently with my coaching clients. And I find whenever a topic starts to come up repeatedly, it is time to create a podcast. These podcast episodes are resources that I like to share with my clients when these particular topics come up. I can then refer them to a recording of something that we could talk about in more in depth in one of our sessions. And it also serves as a resource for any of you who are listening who I may never work with. We may never meet, but I'm just delighted to know that what I'm sharing is of help to you. It's a resource I wish that I had when I was practicing law. So I hope that it's something that you're finding helpful and it's helping you with your practice. So before I jump into all things marketing, I just wanted to say it is a beautiful August evening here in Vancouver. I had a lovely afternoon with my mom and my two kids. My kids are having their birthdays coming up relatively soon, and my mom wanted to buy them each a guitar. It's a wonderful idea, and the kids were really excited about it. So we just returned just a few minutes ago from the guitar shop, and I will share with you that my son is now the proud owner of an electric guitar. It even has one of those amplifier thingies, which he can plug his earphones into. So he can actually do that whole electric guitar thing. And it's relatively quiet, which I appreciate as a mom. And my daughter has an acoustic guitar. And so she just put together a song and serenaded the rest of us with it. And it was quite beautiful. So very fun afternoon, very creative. A big thank you to Grandma Pam for the generous gifts and a wonderful thing for the kids. So for any of you who are looking for ideas for things to do with your children, this might be one of those things. If I'm always looking for lessons and ideas because it's really hard to find things that stick. So maybe I'll report back. We've got about 30 days to make a concrete decision over whether these guitars are permanent fixtures in our house. So stay tuned. No pun intended. Anyways, marketing. You're here for marketing, not guitars. And so we're going to dive into that. And the reason I want to speak about marketing, as I mentioned, it is a topic that has come up quite a bit in conversation lately with my clients. And it's also one of those things that I never fully embraced when I was practicing as a lawyer. I just didn't. I had a few different positions. I worked at a few different firms, and some firms were more keen on lawyers marketing than others. And I really preferred to put myself in an environment where there was so much work that I did not have to do the marketing. I guess I felt a bit shy about it. I'm a bit introverted. I wasn't super keen on the idea of marketing. I didn't even really appreciate fully what marketing truly meant. And so I had to change all that when I became a coach. And I knew that going into it. I knew that if I was going to start a practice from fresh in a profession that I'd never done before, I was going to have to start at the beginning. And so that was a commitment that I made, was to figure out how to do the marketing. And you're listening to my podcast. So it's a bit meta, but this is one of the things that I do for marketing for my practice. And I've learned to really fall in love with it. And so my objective here today is to help you maybe have a mindset shift in terms of how you think about marketing, and also offer some practical strategies to help you figure out what marketing style works for you. You may be a total beginner, in which case then this is going to potentially open your eyes to a number of different new concepts. You may also be a very seasoned marketing person, and for you, some of this might be review. And I hope even if you are seasoned, either you'll be reminded of some concepts that maybe weren't in the forefront for you, and maybe you'll even learn something that you hadn't really thought of before, or you hear it in a way that resonates with you. So welcome all of you, and I'm really excited to dive into marketing. So the first thing that I just wanted to highlight is that I think that marketing can be a real challenge for lawyers, and often lawyers aren't really doing much of it. And the reason that this kind of exists is that, number one, and this is something that came up recently in a conversation with one of my clients, is that I think there's a little bit of a stigma about marketing as a lawyer. And one of my clients said to me, I've always been under the impression that if you're a good lawyer, then you don't need to market. And I don't think that this lawyer is alone in thinking that. I remember thinking that when I was a lawyer. My philosophy was, and what I was told was, if you put your head down and you do good work, the work is going to flow through you. You will not need to market. And I'm here to tell you that yes, you do good work, you do excellent work, you serve your clients, you are a wonderful colleague. Yes, the work is going to flow to you. However, even if that's the case, I highly recommend thinking about how to be strategic in your marketing. And that's part of what we're going to talk about today. Another reason why I think lawyers potentially don't market, and particularly not to their full potential, is that it's not necessarily something that you're taught how to do. In law school, it wasn't offered when I went through. That was a while back, so things may have changed since then. And unless you come from a business background where you've really given some thought to marketing, it's not necessarily something that comes intuitively. And I remember working with lawyers when I was a very junior lawyer who had a good sense of marketing. And so I remember one lawyer that I worked with told me, he's like, when you write an email to a client and you're reporting on a development, it's really helpful to frame it in a way that shows the progress that you have made on a particular file. So in a sense, that was marketing. Another challenge that can happen or that might prevent you from fully marketing is that you may not see the importance of marketing. So you may not recognize the role that it can play in terms of your practice development or the relevance, right? Like, why do you need to do it? Like, what's important to be mindful and proactive in your marketing? Another reason why you may not be marketing is that it may not be billable. So some firms track non-billable activities, including marketing, and you are given credit for it. At other firms, it may not be something that is necessarily recognized. And if you're under the pressure to bill a certain number of hours that are billable hours, you may not really feel like you have time to invest in marketing. And the other reason that I came up with was that sometimes you are just so busy that you don't have time to even think about marketing. So these are a number of reasons why it may not be on the forefront. And so you may have different strategies that you employ. You may be marketing, but you're kind of doing it halfway and making a token effort. Maybe your firm is asking you to update your firm profile, or maybe they're asking you, are you doing presentations? Are you increasing your profile within your firm? They may be asking you things. You kind of look at it and you think, oh yeah, I'll get to that. But maybe it's just not ever a priority for you. Or it may be that you just avoid it entirely. It's the old head in the sand approach. I just won't worry about it. I don't need to worry about it. It's just not a problem for me. And if you avoid it, that is fine, but there may come a time when you wish that you had done more marketing. And this might come as you develop more seniority at your firm, and maybe you've been very busy, you've done a lot of work, but you haven't necessarily built intentional relationships with your clients, whether they are internal clients in the form of other lawyers that are providing work to you, or external clients. And it may also be that you are doing some marketing and you're doing it in that half-hearted way, and it doesn't really feel right to you. It doesn't really feel that good to you. And so your marketing efforts don't feel like they're paying off. They may feel ineffective. And that only reinforces the idea that you don't like to market. And then you may find that you just eventually don't even stick to it. So what is ultimately created in that situation is if you have those half-hearted efforts, like I mentioned, again, you continue to dislike marketing and you don't give yourself that opportunity to find your own voice, to find your own style. And if you're avoiding it altogether, then you may be missing out on opportunities to build your practice. And you want this. Even if you're busy, I think it's really important for you to take a step back and think about the direction of your practice. And yes, you may be really busy. Are you busy with the work that you want to be doing? And if not, maybe we can use some marketing strategies so that you can move into and create work for yourself in the areas that you want to do more. Doing this also has the additional benefit of creating that market for your work. And as you create that greater market for your work, it increases your leverage, right? It allows you to have more control over your practice because now people are seeking you out as an individual. So I'm going to offer you 4 simple steps that you can use to shift the way that you think about marketing and to be more proactive when it comes to marketing within your practice. And before I jump into what those strategies are, I just wanted to give you the caveat that wherever you are, there are very likely some rules and regulations that govern advertising as a lawyer. And I'm not going to go into what those rules are. I just want you to be aware of that. And before you go out marketing to the public, to think about what those rules are and how they might apply. I think for the purposes of what I'm talking about, we're not really treading into that area, but I would still recommend that you pay attention to those. So I mentioned I'm going to offer 4 simple steps, and I'll just jump into those right now. Number 1, and I've given you a little bit of a heads up here, it's mindset, right? I think for so many of you and myself included, marketing can carry a little bit of a stigma with it. Similar words, networking is kind of like that. I feel like when people think about marketing, there's that kind of cheesiness to it, or there's that, you kind of wince when you hear it because you feel like it's superficial or not very authentic. And I think marketing is really one of those words that can have that effect where you hear it and you just think, I'm not that kind of person. I don't like to market. And so what I would invite you to do, first of all, as the very first step, is to redefine the way that you think about marketing. So if you're one of those people who thinks that marketing is sleazy or cheesy or salesy or uncomfortable or embarrassing or annoying or something that somebody else should be doing, not you, or you have too much work already, why is this on your plate? If those are some of the thoughts that run through your head when you think about marketing, my guess is you're not going to want to market. You're not going to feel good about marketing. You're going to feel resentful when it comes time to marketing. And so that is something that we want to focus on, right? What are your thoughts about marketing? So what I would suggest instead is to think about marketing as a form of service. It is a way to provide education to other people who are interested in learning more about what it is that you do and how you can help them. Marketing is helping, right? It's a way of helping other people. You let them know how you can help them. It is an opportunity for you to connect with other people. It's an opportunity for you to grow your relationships with others, to grow the expansiveness of your relationships with others. And truly, what you are doing here is you are helping somebody realize that there may actually be a solution to their problem. And so you can imagine, and I'm going to talk about different types of clients in a moment, but you can imagine there's somebody out there right now who's really suffering, who's really struggling, and they do not know what to do. And you, as a lawyer, have the tools and the knowledge and the willingness and the capacity to help them. And so really all you are doing in terms of marketing is letting somebody know that you understand their problem and that you have the tools and the skills to help them resolve it. That is all marketing is. And when you look at it from that lens, it now becomes helping. And one thing I've learned about you, about lawyers, many of them, because I often ask, what is it? I ask in my coaching conversations, I ask even in non-coaching conversations, what is it that drew you to the law in the first place? And for so many of you, the answer is, I really wanted the opportunity to help people. And so now you've created that opportunity. You've gone through a number of years of education and practice and developing your skills. And so you are uniquely positioned to be able to provide a service that can be so freeing for people, that can be so helpful. They may not love the result that they get, but they get to be done with their problems, and you have the tools to help them. And so looking at it from that perspective, the marketing that you're doing isn't this weird, sleazy, cheesy thing. It's simply communicating that, yes, I see you. Yes, I understand the problem that you're faced with, and I know how to help you. So that is number one, is let's reframe how we think of marketing and look at it as service. It's a form of helping. So number two is more of how to be specific in terms of the marketing that you want to do. And marketing can take so many different shapes and forms and sizes. And I'm going to talk about a few of those in a moment. But before I do that, I would invite you to clarify in your own mind the answer to the questions of, number one, who is it that you serve? And number two, what are you offering them? So under that first question, who is it that you serve? This is really asking who your clients are. So your clients can be coming from a number of different sources. For example, particularly if you're a junior lawyer, your main clients may be other lawyers. They may be internal clients. That's what we sometimes call the lawyers at your firm who give you work. They may be giving you work on different files. And so they are the individuals that you are helping. If you're in-house, it may be that your client is your organization. All your clients are internal clients. Those are who you are serving. It may be that your clients are external to the firm. So it could be that you have an institutional client and you are serving that particular client. And yes, you're interacting with an individual. Maybe you're interacting with a team. You're representing with somebody on behalf of a large organization. It may also be that your client is an individual in the more traditional sense, right? Maybe you're practicing family law and your client really is a partner who's in the process of separating from their partner, or you're in employment law and you're acting for an employee who's leaving their job. Looking at it from the perspective of, okay, who is my client here? And so in those cases, the client is the true client. It's the person who is receiving the legal advice. Other times, your client might be other lawyers. And so for lawyers, often if there's a conflict or you have somebody who reaches out to you and you can't help them with that particular practice area, but you know somebody who can, that becomes a referral source for you. And the lawyers who refer clients to you are, in effect, your clients because they are helping you find work. The relationship is somewhat indirect in the sense that they are not the ones who you're ultimately serving. However, anybody who has ever given a referral before knows that there's a certain sense of integrity that I know I feel when I'm making a recommendation of a professional to somebody who has reached out to me. So if somebody reaches out to me and they say, Paula, I really need to find a good family lawyer, I want to make sure that I'm recommending somebody to them, that I'm making a referral where I feel like that referral is somebody that I trust and that I think will be a good match for the person who's seeking help. So you may be thinking about these lawyers who are referring work to you, who are referring clients to you to have a consultation. You may think of them as your clients as well. So that's the first part of the equation, is who is it that you're speaking to? And of course, that invites a whole other cast of questions, such as what is the message that you want to share with them? Where are they? How do you reach out to them? How do you find them? How do you help them, right? How you help a lawyer in your law firm, for example, is going to look different from how you're going to help your client who may be an employee who has just lost their job, right? Who you're helping out in that capacity. So I mentioned there were two questions. The second question is what you offer. And what I've learned in my study, my self-study of marketing, and believe me, I've spent a lot of time there, is that ultimately what you are offering somebody at some level is a transformation. So when my clients, for example, reach out to me, they reach out to me because they have a problem that they want help solving, right? They may find themselves, maybe it's time management. They find themselves with their practice running them instead of the other way around. And what they really want is to have a practice where they're in control, where they have better managed days. They're not constantly in a reactive mode. They're more responsive. They're proactive. They feel like they've got systems. They're not missing things. So you're kind of taking them from one place and delivering them or helping them arrive at the other place. And I've heard one coach talk about it like, your clients are on the edge of a cliff. They want to get to the edge of a cliff across the way, and you're helping them build that bridge for them to get from A to B. And you want to be able to do that in a way that they feel confident, they feel safe, they feel like you know how to help them. So that ultimately is what you're doing with your clients. You're helping them with a transformation. So how might that look to you? Well, if you're working with lawyers in your firm, for example, if you are a junior, you're helping a senior out, you may be helping them save their time, save their mental energy to focus on maybe more strategy problems. Maybe it's the client relation problems. Maybe it's some other aspect of the file that their skill set is more uniquely suited to. You free up their time so they can focus on that while you help them out, whether it's providing a concise research memo for them, whether it's drafting contracts, whether it's helping them manage the different moving pieces as part of the project. So that's one area. It may be that you are a real estate lawyer. Maybe you do conveyancings, and your job there is to help home buyers deal with the transaction without having any stress or confusion. Maybe you have employers as your client, and what you want to do is help them to make decisions that are lawful, that allow them to take care of their employees and their business with peace of mind. Ultimately, what you may be doing, this is particularly true in litigation. Sometimes your client really needs to feel seen, heard, and understood, and then given that opportunity, given, some people call it their day in court, some people call it finding justice, whatever way you want to describe that. And I heard a really powerful description of that. I was at a dinner a few years ago with a former judge who was speaking about their experience, and the way they described it was seeing their role as ultimately helping somebody who reached the courts, help them solve that problem so that they could lift the weight of that problem off of their shoulders and move on with their life. And I thought that was such a lovely description of the work that our courts are doing. You are, and lawyers too, obviously, as a part of that process. It's freeing somebody, right? It's saying, okay, you've got this thorny problem, and I'm going to help you resolve that problem so that you can move on with your life. So I'd invite you to think about, as you are contemplating what marketing means to you, number one, who it is that you are serving, and number two, what is it that you are doing for them? What transformation are you helping them with? Whether it's easing their workload so that they can focus on something that they need to focus on, whether it's helping them through their legal problems. So that's step two. So step one, of course, is redefining the way that you think about marketing. Step two is identifying who you serve and what you offer. And number three is one that I believe in so strongly. It is to deliver as much value as you can. Now, I remember when I was a junior lawyer at the time, we did not really have podcasts. I don't think the online world was, I would say, not as developed as it is now. This was back in, I think, 2006-ish was when I had overheard this conversation or was part of it. I can't really remember the details, but there were lawyers at the firm that I was at who were debating the merits of posting online articles, blog articles, writings about recent developments in the law. And on the one hand, there was a view that, yes, of course, we should share this information. It's really helpful. Other lawyers will find it helpful. Clients will find it helpful. That was one point of view. Another point of view was, well, this is really time consuming. This is our expertise. This is information that is really hard for us to put together. It takes time to write these articles. It takes time to put together this work. And so we really shouldn't put it online where everybody can see it. So I remember thinking about that, and it truly is a debate that I think a lot of lawyers and other professionals have. Like, how much do you give away for free, if you want to look at it that way, and how much do you hold back in the hopes that it's something that you offer as service, as something that people pay for? And the way that I have come out, and I as I mentioned, I spent a lot of time learning about marketing, hearing different philosophies about marketing. And my own philosophy, my own belief is that there's no downside to providing this value for free. Yes, you will want to have value that you offer and get paid for. I mean, that is ultimately what will be required to run a sustainable business. However, that initial offering of something that is of value is, number one, consistent with the messaging or the mindset that marketing is helping, right? It is giving value. It's sharing information. So it's consistent with that. It's a way to help people. And also, truly, it is a way of helping others see how it is that you might be able to help them, right? So you can think about, other lawyers maybe that are looking for the right lawyer to send their client to, and they say, oh, well, look, this lawyer has done this wonderful blog article. It's exactly on point. This is the exact issue that my client is having. I can't help them, but that person seems really qualified to do it. So in a way, it gets you out in front of them. Same with clients who are ultimately the consumers of the legal advice that you give them. They can kind of identify, well, that person seems like an expert in their field. Look at what they've produced online. And so really what I'm getting at here is that you can go and share so much value with others, and that is helpful to them, and it helps them to see what it is that you do and how it is possible for you to help them. And if you are thinking about how to do that, I'd also invite you to consider your own role, your own expertise, and how you present uniquely what is distinctive about you as a professional. And I've done a podcast episode about developing your personal brand in 5 simple steps. Interestingly, it came out just about a year ago. It's episode number 14. So you can go back to that. And there's some prompts in that episode that will help you define how you want to show up as a professional. And I think you can use this as you decide on your marketing style. So I mentioned that I would offer some ideas in terms of how you can help others. If they're lawyers within your firm, right? If you're a relatively junior lawyer or you work at a large firm where your ability to cultivate relationships with lawyers who are in a position to provide work to you, I recommend actively offering to help them, offer to help them on files. If it's a lawyer in a different department and you know that sometimes they have issues that come up that are issues that you can help with, let them know. I can help you with this type of file. I would love to help you with this. Next time you have a file where this issue comes up, give me a call and I'll let you know if that's something that I can help you with. So you want to be out there making offers to help. And when you have those conversations, and any conversation that is truly about marketing, I think it's so important to find out what that other person is thinking. Ask them what it is that will be helpful to them, what will make their lives easier. What is the end result that they are looking for? If it's a lawyer at your firm, how is it that I can help you serve your clients better? So you want to have that curiosity, that curious mindset where you're there as a person in service who is there to help. So that's for lawyers within your firm. Offer to help them figure out ways that your work might be complementary to theirs. Now, another type of client that you might have are lawyers outside of your firm. And so we talked about referrals, for example. And what I recommend doing there, and this is a conversation that comes up quite a bit in my coaching practice, is to find ways to position yourself as a leader in your practice area. You might do that through writing. Maybe you're writing blogs on your law firm website. Maybe you're writing academic articles. Maybe you're writing textbooks that are used for those who practice in your particular practice area. It could also be that you're writing continuing education papers that are distributed within your professional organization, whether it's a learning organization or practice sections that will look different depending on which jurisdiction you're practicing in. But ultimately what you're doing here is writing and then making it available to other lawyers who are interested in the topic, because that will help them understand the topic. And it also helps to position you as a lawyer that they could turn to if they needed some help in that area, or if their clients or people who come to them need help in that area. Another way to do this, of course, is through speaking, right? Whether it's speaking in person at industry events or practice group sessions or anything that involves you presenting, that's one way to do it. Also webinars, right? We are still in this lovely environment where we've got kind of the best of both worlds now. We've got in-person events back on. We've got the virtual events back on. You can speak in those areas as well. And here's another idea. So number one is for you to be the one who shows up as a leader. I would also encourage you to think about what happens when others are presenting, when others are speaking at conferences. And what I would encourage you to do is number one, to attend, right? You'll have an opportunity to learn more about a particular area. And I would also encourage you to follow up with the speaker, follow up to let them know whether it's a live in-person event, whether it's an online event, not even live. It could be a webinar that you watch and it's a year old. You might still reach out to the person who put it on to let them know, I really enjoyed the presentation that you did. I'd love to learn more about that. You may find that there's some opportunity there for you to collaborate with that person. Maybe there's something that you can offer them. So that's an idea. And also, if you're at one of these presentations, I would invite you. This is a tip that I learned recently, and I'd never really thought of it before, but I think it rings true, is to ask questions. So if you are attending an event which is on a particular practice area, and it's your practice area or something you're interested in practicing in, you may raise your hand in the actual room or in the Zoom room and pose a question, because other people will then see you and they'll say, okay, well, I recognize that person. That person was at that event. They asked that question. That was really great. It generated some wonderful discussions. So another idea or suggestion, if what you're doing is trying to build your marketing or build a market with lawyers outside of your firm, is LinkedIn or other forms of social media. The one I'm most familiar with is LinkedIn. And so that's where I tend to hang out. And there are a lot of lawyers and other professionals on LinkedIn. So that's a place where you can be, number one, telling people about the work that you do. You might talk about some of the files that you have. I see lawyers posting about cases that they've tried, developments in the law. They talk about where they're speaking, for example. And all of this shows that you are out there. It gives an indication of the work that you're doing, which of course is helpful for anybody who is trying to find someone who does what you do. What I would also offer in terms of social media, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook or some other place, is I always encourage you to think about that virtual platform as though it were a real place. And so, yes, we are going to want to announce when we have developments in our practice or developments that are relevant to our practice area. I would also encourage you to like and comment when other people post. It is the equivalent of that reciprocal question asking in a normal conversation. If you were to think about meeting somebody and they did all of the talking and never turned it around to you, you might eventually lose interest in the conversation because you feel like it's not really reciprocated. And so as much as possible, try to engage with others and show that you're interested in what they're doing as well. And I know it can be really hard and challenging because we don't have a ton of time, but I think it's a really neat way to stay in touch with people and to show that you're watching them, that you're interested in what they have to share as much as you're interested in sharing what you have to share. Now, when it comes to clients, in the sense that we traditionally think of clients, so whether it's the individuals who are retaining you to help them through a legal problem in their life, whether it's institutional clients like insurers or larger companies that are clients of your firm, then you may also find ways to offer them value. So maybe it's speaking at their organization. Maybe there's a change in the law and you want to update them on that particular area. Maybe it's, an industry event. So you're going and shaking hands and all that. Maybe it's smaller one-to-one engagements. And this applies really for all clients that you would be potentially working with. But having that ability to have a one-to-one conversation with somebody and to learn about them, to learn about their practice, to learn about what it is that would be helpful for them, that is such a wonderful opportunity to see where it is that you can help them. Before I move on to the next strategy, which is number 4, I'll just leave you with this idea. And it's something that a coach shared with me a couple of years ago, which was this idea that marketing is really like the pink spoon. And the pink spoon, of course, is Baskin-Robbins, right? Like when you go to the ice cream shop and they offer you up a spoon of the ice cream, it's your opportunity to sample it and to see if you like it and decide if you want more. So if you want to continue the conversation, if you've offered some assistance and they go, yeah, I know that person, like she really knows what she's talking about, I want to work with her, right? That's one way to kind of start forming that relationship. And side note, on today's trip to the guitar store, they offered rentals. So interestingly, my son went full on. He bought, well, grandma gifted an electric guitar with all the bells and whistles. And my daughter, who's a little bit more of a cautious consumer, has rented an acoustic guitar. And so for a very small fee, a very small monthly fee, she can now take it home, test it out, see if she likes it. And if she does like it, she can keep it. And so these are just different ideas for how you might be able to show somebody that you can help them in a way that aligns with what they want, right? They may not feel comfortable jumping in feet first with somebody that they don't know yet, right? But when you're able to offer that value up front, then they have a chance to experience it and know that, yes, you're the right person to help me through this problem. So that was number 3, some ideas in terms of how you can go about delivering value. And you really want to deliver as much value as you possibly can. So number 4 is to do what feels good to you and what you're good at. And I had a wonderful mentor years ago who I remember talking to about marketing. And he was saying that he wasn't really the kind of person that liked going to big social gatherings. He didn't like cocktail parties. He didn't like making small talk. So what he did for a strategy was he became very interested in certain niche areas and he wrote about them. He spoke about them. He became known as a leader in those areas. And that was his way of marketing. So if you don't feel comfortable, if you're an introvert, for example, and there's only so much of that in-person chit chat or whatever it feels like to you that you want to engage in, then you may find that writing or speaking is a more comfortable option for you. It may be that big groups aren't your thing, but you really enjoy the smaller one-to-one interaction. And so I would invite you to think about what it is that you enjoy doing and then do more of that, right? You might find that writing papers is a way to communicate value. And it's also an excellent way for you to keep your own expertise at the level that you want it, right? You're learning about the developments in the law. It helps you really crystallize that knowledge internally. And it also helps you then share that knowledge and be a resource and a source of help for other people who maybe are struggling with that same problem. So as we mentioned, there are so many different channels. There's speaking, there's writing, there's one-to-one meetings, there's organizing social events. It may be that that's a strength of yours, right? You may really enjoy being the person who puts together an event for your firm and you love reaching out and asking your clients if they're available. I'd love to have you. It'd be such a great event. Then you get to be there, you get to see them, you get to have a conversation with them. There's no wrong way to do this. And ultimately, what you're trying to do is to find a way that feels natural to you, that feels good to you, because going back to some of the challenges that you may have, if you don't like it, if you don't feel good about it, chances are you're not going to do it. But if it's something that you enjoy doing, then it becomes more part of your practice and you get to build on that. So to recap the 4 suggestions, number 1 is to redefine the way you think about marketing. Number 2 is to identify who it is that you serve and what it is that you have to offer. Number 3 is to go out and deliver as much value as you possibly can to those who you want to serve. And number 4, it is do what feels good and that you're good at. Now, when you adopt this approach, it'll work for you because you will feel good doing it. You will feel like you're helping people instead of feeling salesy, like you're imposing something on them. And when you enjoy it, chances are you'll do more of it. You will need to spend some time to allocate to marketing. And I recommend giving yourself maybe a percentage of what percentage of your time would you like to dedicate to marketing. And I was listening to this audiobook in the car the other day. This was an entrepreneur talking. He divided up, 3 different categories of where to focus your energy in your business. And I think he gave marketing like an 80% And so that's probably a bit high. I've heard for lawyers more of like an 80-20, but you decide, right? It depends on the nature of your practice. Your practice may be more in the nature of bringing business in than it is doing legal work. And so what is the right percentage for you? And once you decide on what that is, then I'd invite you to think about how it is you want to fill that time, how you're going to create that time. How are you going to move aside billable work so that you can do non-billable marketing, knowing that that is how you're going to generate the work that you want that will ultimately build your practice and sustain you over the long term. Another thing that you will need to do is to hone your skills, which you're doing anyway. So if you're writing, you're going to be honing your writing skills. You may be developing your ability to speak or write for different audiences. If you're writing to other lawyers, that's going to be one audience, versus if you're writing to non-lawyers, that's going to be a different way of writing. So you get to practice all these different ways of communicating. Another thing that you're going to need is the willingness to experiment and to find what works. And so you may start out, you might start writing, you might start doing blogs, and you're like, well, Paula told me to do a blog, but this is tedious, it's time consuming, I don't like it. So I would invite you to experiment and find something that actually does work for you. And I can tell you from my own experience, marketing in my space, which of course is different from your space, I really love doing a podcast because I love listening to podcasts. I find them super helpful. I find that I really connect to and relate with the podcasters that I listen to. I think it's a lovely way to share information. It's kind of like a conversation. And what I love is that you can listen to a podcast while you're doing other things. I imagine that you are doing something, you're listening, maybe you're folding laundry. That's one of my favorites. Or you're kind of motoring around the house. You might be working out, going for a walk, driving home. There's all these different opportunities. And so I just love having that voice in my ear. And so I think the people that will want to learn from me or work with me are those who are going to enjoy that too. So I tried blogging. Blogging is, I like it. This is what I really chose to commit to. I also like that the way that I've set myself up is that I work with a podcast editor who they are amazing, and the schedule is set. And so today I'm recording my podcast on my deadline day. And so it's getting close to dinner time. Kids probably getting hungry, but it's something that I've committed to, and I do regularly, and I love the consistency, and I love being able to connect with you on a regular basis and being able to create a body of work that is helpful to you, that is helpful to the clients that I work with, and it's something that I feel good about. So that's my experience, and you will develop your own relationship with whatever it is that you like to do. I mean, it may be speaking. I speak as well, and I love those opportunities. I'll be speaking this week for the Ontario Bar Association, talking to young lawyers about finding the right fit. I've had the opportunity to speak for women lawyers going through the pandemic and helping them make any transitions that were required. So I just would ask you to think about where can I provide value? How can I share what it is that I'm doing and invite others to learn about it, and how can I help them? So that really ultimately is at its core. And what is the best way for you to serve? What this will create for you is you will start to attract the kind of clients that you want to work with because you're now speaking to them, right? You're finding out who they are. You're finding out what their problems are. You're finding out how you can help them. And the more you do that, the more work you will develop in those areas, and it will build on itself. And so, we talked at the beginning about put your head down, do good work, and that's your marketing. In effect, that's kind of what will happen, right? You'll have a blend of the marketing that you're doing that is actively considered marketing, but you'll also be developing those referrals that come without you having to do anything at all. You'll also generate more value because you will be helping people on the front end, those who may not work with you ever, but who get the benefit of the marketing that you're doing. And you'll also be generating more of that work in your practice. And so you'll feel like, you're really making the impact that you want to make, and you'll feel more in control of your practice. And finally, you'll help more people. So you can't help anyone if they don't know who you are, what you do, and how they can help them. So the more you get out there and you tell them, the more people you're going to help. And that, of course, will, again, help you create more of an impact. So I would invite you to think about marketing and how you will choose to think about marketing going forward. I would invite you to think about who it is that you want to serve and how you want to serve them and how you want to show up, what marketing might look like in your practice. And if you would like additional help with that, by all means, please feel free to reach out. This is something that I can help you with. And this is all very meta because yes, I am marketing. Right now, I'm asking you if you would like to work with me. So I hope that you have enjoyed this episode. I love being able to connect with you every week. I encourage you to go out there and experiment and try marketing in all the different ways that feel good to you. I encourage you to go and check out what the guidance is in your particular jurisdictions in terms of any restrictions of rules for lawyers. We do want to adhere to them. And like I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. It would be a pleasure to connect with you. So with that, my friend, thank you for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful week. I'm going to go downstairs and be serenaded by my kids. They gave me a little concert before this podcast recording. I hope that they will serenade me after dinner. And yeah, if you have any questions about the guitars, you can also ask those too. So have a great week. I'll connect with you again soon. Bye for now. If you enjoyed today's show and don't want to miss an episode, subscribe and follow the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you haven't already, please leave a rating and review. Your feedback will help me create a podcast that's tailored to your needs and goes straight to the heart of what matters to you. For instructions on how to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast, visit www.thejoyfulpractice.com/podcast launch. See you next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Joyful Practice for Women Lawyers podcast. If you want more information, visit www.thejoyfulpractice.com. See you next week.